Hello. Thank you for joining me. And I want to talk about inauthentic spirituality. And I hope I don't cross some lanes here because this is a very sensitive topic. But so at the core of us individually, that is you and me, is your divine and spiritual nature. And I want to emphasize that should be the moral compass of whatever you do. That is, every decision, every thought, every action, or every desire that you have should be keenly weighed on this moral compass. Before you make any decision, put it on that weigh scale and ask yourself that how does it balance with that unsellable or unbuyable part of you. Just listen keenly, and if you find that there is a conflict, in your heart about making this decision or taking this step, then it's most likely that it's wrong for your spirit. And sorry in advance. There is some construction going on outside, and it's also very cold here in Nairobi. But anyway, to move on, that is what anyone who proclaims to be on the spirituality path must do, in that any decision that you make or the things that you choose to believe must be well aligned with your divine nature and help to nourish your spirit. It should not be just something that gratifies your physical desires and ignores your spiritual side. My definition of fake or inauthentic or shallow spirituality is when you sink your head in the diversions along the path of spirituality and then make that the core basis of your spiritual practice. It is no secret today that spirituality has been commodified in different ways. Spiritual practices have been commodified, and many people who believe and follow these practices blindly are simply clinging to idols in the name of pursuing God. A true spiritual adept is one who is able to recognize what are the desires of the flesh and what is divine. So we are gifted with different spiritual abilities, and as you ascend, you are likely to encounter different experiences and capabilities. I'm talking about clairvoyancy, prophecy, and abilities to manifest. But these are simply sideshows, and if you are genuinely pursuing spirituality, that is, gaining a deep and intimate union with God, then these sideshows or things that you encounter along the way are simply there to show you your capabilities and divine nature as a human being, but they are not the ultimate prize that you're seeking. And yet, truth be told, these have become the core foundation and messages that are spread, for example, in religion, as spiritual practices. It's about prosperity and making wealth, or whichever place of worship that can do miracles. Then that is what seems to attract people, because in our limited nature as human beings, we tend to believe in the things that we see and consider those as manifestations of the truth, not taking into account that these are simply commodifications of spiritual practices. And in my book of definition, that qualifies as fake or inauthentic spirituality. As a spiritual seeker, you need to be smart and identify whether the things that you believe are simply fleshly or worldly things, or consider whether they give you any spiritual nourishment. So when it comes to these phases as a seeker, where there are manifestations of this, what we so-called gifts, understand that these are only temporary and you shouldn't get stuck. It's okay to experience them for some time and take your time to study. For example, if you have attained that state of peace and tranquility and are starting to witness some sort of clairvoyant abilities, recognize that this is just a phase of ascension and take the time to witness and experience these capabilities. Study them, all right, but don't be caught up and stay stagnant. Avoid getting caught up in your ego and pride, starting to proclaim this as the ultimate gift that you're seeking. But instead, just like a traveler or an explorer, you travel from one place to another and then you gain the experience and then you move on. There are better things waiting for you, and you can't settle until you meet the beloved. that you're seeking to find, if you hold on to these little rewards along the way, that shall be your ultimate reward, and you won't be able to attain that ultimate goal of spiritual enlightenment. If I can be more precise, inauthentic spirituality manifests in the modern world through various means. Now we have, using crystals as a form of manifesting. There is a false notion that it's these items or these crystals that are causing these manifestations, and yet it's our inner divine power and our will of the mind that is able to produce these results using the power of manifestation. And even there is that practice of chastity where men and women avoid sexual encounters deliberately, and that in itself is often a powerful spiritual practice because it helps you to be more focused and calm and aggressive and even potent in your spiritual practice. But as you have seen, nowadays it has become a practice of attraction, which is not a bad thing, all right? Chastity will make you attractive to people of the opposite gender, but in spirituality, you don't practice it for sexual attraction. That is, for example, for men to attract women, even though that often happens, but I'd advise that you practice it simply for the clarity that it brings in your spiritual progress, and not simply for you to be attractive sexually, which, like I've said, have been simply spiritual practices that have been commodified, and many people are using these practices as shortcuts to manifest material things and desires, the things that they want to get, without understanding any basic spiritual principles and foundations of these practices. Like I've said, places of worship and churches are not exempt from these practices. It's mostly about showing glamour to attract followers and materialistic promises of what they will get if they believe in these messages. And this is an opportunity for the so-called ministers to exploit and prey on the naivety and also fears of people to become rich themselves and live comfortable lives. And something that I commonly do not agree with is blindly following written guides and not discerning the true message or meaning behind what is written in these scriptures, because these scriptures are not simply stories but coded message of the Spirit. And if you tap into the Spirit deeply and listen to that spiritual voice, then you'll find that mostly whichever text that you read, you'll find the coded message. And it's not simply about the stories that people tell that, hey, believe simply because it's a story. If you look keenly at the core of religion was spirituality, okay? So spirituality was there before religion, and religion is simply a path for the common man to achieve spirituality through the way they live, through the way they think, through the way they worship. Because given the nature of the material world and just how the human mind works, it's very easy for man to forget their spiritual nature. And so these books and the messages of the prophets are simply there to guide man to stay in tune with their divine and spiritual nature. So my main message is, if you are genuinely seeking, then these diversions along the way should not distract you from the ultimate purpose, because if you cling onto these small rewards, then you'll miss the big picture, thinking that it's about meeting your fleshly, physical desires, of having a big car that God has promised you, or making money and wealth by becoming a powerful manifester. These are simply achievements that will feed your ego and will simply perish and vanish once you face the physical death. What you gain of the spirit will always be there eternally, and that is why all spiritual texts, regardless of what denomination you belong, will emphasize the life of eternity. They simply guide you to be spiritually attuned so that you can experience what is of eternity, that part of you that will never be perishable, even if your physical body dies. So as a call to action, or the basis of this video, is for you to closely examine the different areas of your life and even the sort of beliefs that you have or what you've been taught. Closely examine them and filter out the inauthentic or shallow spirituality so that your main focus is on the bigger picture, and that is the union with God. Learn to trust yourself and listen to your intuition. Do not fear to listen to yourself, because within you, God has put that antenna through which you can receive direct communications about what is genuinely of the Spirit and what is not. That is it for now, and I sure do have many interesting topics coming. So if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, please do, and like and also comment. All right, I would love to know what are your thoughts and opinions about this content. I hope to see you on my next video. Cheers and have a great time.